Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn. It's been a very different day here today with no internet or phone reception for a lot of the day. I don't know if you've been able to perceive it, but the collective field has actually been a lot calmer. I don't live in a built-up area, but even so, it's been a lot calmer, a lot quieter in the collective consciousness today, here in Australia at least, because of this noise that's taking up our life more and more, which is the internet itself and the communications and everything around that, which is a bit of a reflection of the fact that perhaps collectively it doesn't actually give us that much peace or that much stillness, but is a constant source of background stimulation for the mind or background need to be connected or updated of what's happening all the time. Perhaps that information isn't so useful to us after all. But in this video, I'll be discussing a very interesting phenomenon that I've been observing in the last month, really since the beginning of this new conflict in the Middle East, which of course is extremely tragic. The loss of human life, the senseless loss of human life, the destruction, the hate, the violence, the total injustice of so many things that we're seeing really is quite disturbing. And at least on the positive side, a lot of outpouring of emotion and the deep desire to stop the killing, stop the violence, which is a real positive side for where humanity's at this very moment. But this video is not really about that. It's actually a more esoteric look at what this actually means in terms of the dissemination of information and the effects that we're seeing of this global awakening in terms of the alternative media. Now, the metrics all show that the mainstream media is in constant decline, is in terminal decline. The viewership, the readership, the circulation numbers, all these sorts of things are in decline. And really, it's difficult to imagine how, with a population decline once the boomers pass, which is a long way away, but they're only really in the early stages of retirement or yet to retire. But those numbers, those demographic numbers, make up a lot of the viewership of the mainstream media and the mainstream print publications, even online subscriptions and so on. But where I'm going with this is that the credibility of the mainstream media took an irreversible hit through the years of 2020, through the pandemic, and even today. It will never recover from what's happened. It's irreversible. It's an irreversible trend. It's an effect of the ongoing global awakening, the paradigm shift. But since then, one of the predictions I made in one of my forecasts that I make in the solstice and the equinoxes was the rise of the rookie activist, which really has been in a state of expansion from the pandemic, and the rise of the alternative media, the rise particularly of the right-wing alternative media. And it's not really even right-wing, a lot of it's called right-wing, but it's really not. It's just, it's not even really alternative actually. It's more actually people discussing facts that are objective, not subjective, which is based in logic and is coherent. However, and this is the point, is that because a lot of these people who have risen to prominence are either gatekeepers, Pied Pipers, all kinds of people who are not having a state of consciousness or an intent that reflects the new paradigm, they're coming unstuck more and more. And this next level of awakening that we're moving into, as far as being it's got a relationship to leadership itself actually, in this dissemination of information, because we are seeing the legacy media in terminal decline. But what will replace that? Who will replace that? And this is part of the strategy of the globalists to try to maintain the narrative by whatever means possible. And by that, they don't care if you watch the mainstream 6 o'clock news to shape your opinion and views, or you watch some so-called influencer on one of the alternative media platforms, and which, you know, starts off with just the general mainstream social media and works its way through to some of the more alternative platforms, like even perhaps you know, some of the digital ones that are with video. So, and there are good ones such as BitChute, for example, which is not really that used that much still, but that particular platform, or another platform perhaps that is a genuine alternative to something like Facebook, Instagram, will definitely manifest, I think, in this decade, not for perhaps another 5 years, but it will come. It's inevitable actually now. And I'm not talking about something such as Telegram, but something more widely used with good functionality that actually maintains its profit through advertising, even possibly through subscription. The details I'm not clear on, but the way is paid for that. Because what we're seeing now, I'm getting to the whole point in this video, is that the recent conflict in the Middle East has exposed another level of fragility, of purity, of lower consciousness, of people's agendas that is being controlled in the background like puppets in the alternative media. And some of these people are the biggest names in podcasts, in you know, on all the social media platforms that are appearing to offer an alternative view, but it's completely managed, it's completely staged. And the views of what people are not saying in regard to this conflict, and sometimes even what they do say, is not only a red flag, it's a giveaway of where they're at in their own personal evolution and in terms of their own personal agenda and what their agenda is really. And this is one facet of the awakening that is very intriguing, because we are all being plugged into information and wanting to keep up with what's happening. But the question we need to start asking yourself is, who are you paying attention to? Because that is a reflection of your own consciousness. And I've seen many of these so-called alternative figures, even here in Australia. They are, without question, not in my view, even close to being in the league of leadership in the new paradigm. In fact, most, but not all, critically not all, of people that have a very big following or a large following are almost by definition in this lower vibrational state, because this is Kali Yuga. I will be making a very detailed series on the Yugas soon. People that are telling you we're not in Kali Yuga literally have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Hospitals do not get bombed in Satya Yuga. Schools do not get bombed in Satya Yuga. Innocent civilians in residential buildings do not get bombed and murdered in Satya Yuga. People who are claiming this have very, very little understanding of what the Yugas really are, which I'll get to in another video. But if we look at this like an ascending pyramid, that we're sort of going higher and higher and higher, who are we attuning our consciousness to? Who are we receptive to hear? Because that is a direct representation or indicator or parameter of our own consciousness. So, for example, some of these Pied Pipers or gatekeepers, some people now, it's very amazing, and I mean this in a very positive context, are seeing straight through some of these people. And I've noticed in the last month that people who they used to think were credible and sort of listened to during the pandemic and took on board their opinion, they're just completely turned off these people. And it's almost like there has been like a filter removed, or many people have gone through another own, I wouldn't say it's a leap in consciousness, but a progression at least, in this search for truth, in this quest for greater discernment, greater clarity of the mind. And this is a reflection. And yet at the same time, I still see many people completely lost supporting these so-called alternative people in the awakening community, who are nothing but like agents of the dark ultimately, even though it doesn't appear like that. And then people always reply with, well, that's just ridiculous. They're all saying all these things about good things about, the statistics of what happened in the pandemic, or speaking about this and talking about big pharma and all these sorts of things. Of course they are. Of course they are, because the globalists are trying to manage your consciousness. They're trying to put it in a perimeter, in like an electric fence, so to speak, of consciousness, so you are not able to actually go beyond that. And people keep pointing to what they are saying that's good. Sure, they say a lot of good things, and they're still having an effect in the way of shifting the masses. But what I'm talking now is about this sort of progression into a deeper form of leadership in the new paradigm in terms of the alternative media, and also how this is reflected back to us and how we relate to this information. Because the downfall of the strategy that the globalists are now using is that they are moving like the masses, say further down the pyramid. And I don't mean this in any lesser than or lower than, but just that they're early on in their journey, they're actually supporting these people moving up the pyramid because it's the only play that they have left. And what's important to understand with this is that these people are highly strategic of what they do. Everything is, there's so much symbolism in everything from, colors in films to numerology and astrology, and it's just layered and layered and layered. But because the gatekeepers, they don't understand the true impact of what's happening on the planet now, they are unable to see that they're actually contributing to their own ultimate demise and the ultimate revelation of who and what they really are, in a way that there's no turning back from. Because in this process of the global awakening, once it's been established that a certain person is a shill, I don't really like that word, but is a gatekeeper is a better word, because that's really their function. There's no turning back from that once a certain number of people realise. And then it's a feedback loop, because then these people get more desperate to retain this credibility of truth seeker, freedom fighter, all these cliches. They then actually support the awakening by becoming a little bit more radical. And their information is actually closer to the truth in some aspects. That they actually help all these, like another level of people moving up this pyramid. But having said that, there's also an amazing number of people now who are really charting the course in the alternative media of real wisdom, actually. And I'm not saying that the people here should be perfect or they're not going to make mistakes and all these sorts of things, but the intent is very clear. The intent is very pure. And that's why a lot of the questions that are hanging around a lot of these people now, who are the gatekeepers, won't go away, will only increase. And then there will be a new number of people coming to the surface with this, because this whole awakening, it's not really like anyone channeling their energy into just one big influencer. No, it's a lot of smaller people contributing and connecting to their own, their own, in their own way, in their own style, in their own content, that helps support people in a certain aspect of their awakening. And in the last month, we've seen so many of these Muppets completely reveal themselves that it's quite eye-opening, actually, and it's quite fascinating to see it as a study of consciousness, because they do not have the discernment, they do not have the purity, they do not have this soul calling to be true to the path of creating the new reality, the new earth. They are serving masters in the background. They are actually suffering from their own limitations, their own vanity, their own pride, their own ego, that they're unable to actually put the cause of humanity first, even if it's to their own detriment in terms of popularity or prestige or socioeconomic status. And this is why these gatekeepers will never be the true pioneers of the global awakening, because they are not geared to it in the calling of their heart, in the calling of their soul. And at the same time, there are some people who are continually calling this out, who are really having this compass really clear on charting a course through this chaos. And you're going to see this, everyone is going to wake up to a certain extent with the collapse of the economy and the failing of the US dollar and the oncoming global depression, which is unstoppable at this point. But the whole chart beyond that is it's a much higher frequency. And in the context of what I'm saying, this doesn't even take into account the spiritual dimension of the paradigm shift, which hasn't really even begun yet. I mean, we're not really even in the beginning stages of that, really. We're still sort of in our focus collectively is still on the quality of information in terms of the control system, news, current affairs, social, economic, political issues. There's still people out there thinking that Donald Trump is the savior and this whole Q thing is for real. I mean, we've got a long way to go before we actually have this discernment where people can see things clearly. They've been lied to, that all these predictions, all these external savior myths is wiped out, is like eliminated. And at a much deeper level, it comes back to us as an individual and us only as we work our way through this. There's no one coming to save us. And in many ways, it's a relief, because then we're more focused on true, genuine transformation, evolution, which I discuss in my book, actually, Paradigm Shift, The Global Awakening of Humanity. So there's a lot there to think about. And I guess the main message here today, at least, is think about who you're listening to, who you pay attention to, who you believe. There's a lot of wolf in sheep clothing in this field who often have big followings and do say the right things and do have the right terminology, but don't have the consciousness. And it's becoming clearer and clearer, because the kind of people who are at the forefront of this, really at the tip of the spear, they're actually going into the next level now. And it's really wonderful to see that, and to see that there are genuine people on this planet who are running at the target, who are unfailing in their mission, and who are having this inner calling, that it's a real calling of the soul, and it is completely unstoppable. I mean, I think actually some of them, they don't quite realize it themselves, actually. You see some of these people. But nevertheless, it's the true awakening of the human soul, which is a defining aspect, if not the defining aspect, ultimately, of this paradigm shift. Once you strip away all the external candy of UFOs and ascension and beings and channeling and clairvoyance and intuition and timelines and all these things. And this is what we'll get into. I think we're still years away from this, but it'll become more prominent in the second part of this decade, is the true awakening of the human soul, is the union of the higher self and the lower self, is this innate power that stems from the indestructible nature of the human soul, which most of us have at least, but it's the tapping into that, this relentless, uncompromising wisdom that we are bringing forth to illuminate and share with others to support the planetary shift, which is going to a new stage. I'll talk about this more in different videos. I've got a lot of things to talk about. I've been wanting to make more videos, but I'm just trying to get there, but I've got so many other things to do. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. We live in epic times.